have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Oh, we went a little old school today. This is Tennessee New York Giants Straight Talk, powered by Online Big Blue LLC. Oh, it's the eve before the draft. Dun, dun, dun. What's Joe Shane going to do? What's the Giants going to do? How is this draft going to break down? So many questions, so many things that we just literally, I think, at times cannot answer. And you never know. I mean, I think we kind of have a feeling that Tennessee is going Cam Ward. It would be a disservice to the people in Tennessee that if they passed on what will probably be a franchise quarterback that could potentially lead them into the playoffs for the next 10 years. Boy, looking at that Indianapolis game, boy, that really hurts, doesn't it? It stings a little bit more when we hear, oh, well, the first overall pick, the Tennessee Titans select quarterback Cam Ward, Miami University. Oh, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt to watch because we had that euphoria winning that game, that final home game to give us one home game for the season, so we could go 3-14 to miss out on a quarterback. Now, Cleveland, of course, is the one that's going to be, they're going to be rolling the dice. I think they're going to predicate what the Giants are going to do or potentially could do. And I kind of think that, are they leaning towards a quarterback after adding Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco? Are they sitting there like the Giants looking at their quarterback room and saying, you know what? This doesn't look bad.
Gentlemen, which brings me to my next point. Don't smoke crack.
If you pass on Shedeur Sanders, you're going to get what you get. Plain and simple in Cleveland. Cleveland has had this issue in regards to finding a quarterback going back to Brian Sipe and Bernie Kosar. They have swung and missed so many times, it's not even funny. But Kelly Holcomb is sitting out there somewhere laughing, going, hell, I think at 40 plus or 50 plus, I think I can play. But you look at them, and I have this feeling they're going to go Travis Hunter. I really do. I really have this feeling that that's where this is going to end up with Cleveland. So that leaves the Giants sitting there at 3, sitting there on the clock at 3. Joe Shane. Oh, we are just.
Make the bad man stop.
Can we just not have him pick it? Can we just, like I said, can we just call up Philly and say, listen, we will give you a 7th round pick if you let Howie pick the 3rd overall pick? General consensus is among certain Giant fans that it should be Abdul. Still don't get why. I'm still trying to figure this out. In this game, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't know why that, because I was watching TV. I still don't understand it. This is a guy that was an off-the-ball linebacker for 2 seasons at Penn State. And he didn't come into prominence until last year, where Penn State lost 2 starting defensive ends to the draft, one in the 1st round, one in the 3rd round. And then all of a sudden they decided at Penn State, hey, let's put him on the line. Let's use his speed to take advantage of slower tackles that are probably going to be working at Home Depot. And he comes out with the big season. Bully for him. But that does not mean, as a New York Giants organization, that is even close to the pick. And I keep looking at the way this is breaking down. I can't see that as the pick. You went out and traded assets for the likes of Brian Burns last year, then gave him $120 million. 3 years ago, you went out and used the 5th overall pick on the likes of Kayvon Thibodeau. You also brought in Ferguson from Dallas. And also you have not Brian Burns. What about Brian Burns? You also have Dexter Lawrence sitting on the line. So your thought process is going to be, I'm going to go out and get Abdul Carter, who's nursing still a shoulder injury, who's nursing a foot injury as well, because I see the how he led college football with 23.5 tackles for a loss last season. Of course, half those come off the sack. Also, basically, he is a guy that, Giant fans are saying he's going to force his way into the pass rotation with Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. So I'm taking a guy 3rd overall that's going to have to force his way into the lineup because you have 2, hopefully, or perceivably, solid players in front of them. That's what I'm being told. because we're going to use him in an intriguing way with packages as a matchup problem. Okay. So I'm going to take a third guy. I'm going to take a guy third overall who was average at best as an off-the-ball linebacker. If you take a look at Parsons only played 2 seasons at Penn State, and that's always a comparison. Parsons had 80-plus tackles his first year at Penn State as a freshman and only started 1 game. If you take a combination of Abdul Carter's first 2 seasons at linebacker and compare them to the last season of Mr. Parsons, he barely has the same amount of tackles in 2 years that Parsons had at 1, and Parsons was more of a destructive force coming out. And I don't understand why people are like, he's going to be better than Parsons. Where do you see this? Where's this body of work that you see that he is going to be better than one of the premier pass rushing linebacker / hybrid defensive ends in the NFL? Parsons has a repartee of pass rushing moves. We've all said it before with Abdul Carter. He has the dip. You use your speed rush, come off the line, dip your shoulder. It's not even a swim move, and go around to the guy. You know what you're going to do in the NFL? You know what a smart tackle is going to do in the NFL? He's going to come out of his stance wide and take you out wide and have you try to cut your rush back into the inside, where he's then going to take you and push you into the ground. Speed will work for a period of time in the NFL. But it isn't going to work consistently for a career. So you're telling me you traded away assets and gave $120 million to Brian Burns. You're telling me you wasted the 5th overall pick on Kayvon Thibodeau. We still have to see if we're picking up that $16 million option, and we're going to redraft the position once again. It makes zero football sense. And then I love the morons.
Stupid giant Twitter post.
Who sit there and say, well, you have to take the best player available. That's what the Giants need to do. No, you can't reach for a position. No, I agree. You shouldn't reach for a position, but you should take the best player available that makes sense for your team. If you are a good team, if you are the Kansas City Chiefs, or if you are the Philadelphia Eagles, and you're sitting there looking at that best player available, yes, I agree. You take the best player available because you are a good team and you have that luxury. When you have multitudes of issues still all over this team and a roster that's a cut and paste roster that doesn't actually fit into some of the pieces that we have in reference to regards to your coaching staff, how can you take a guy at 3 that you're going to build packages for? Don't think about Giants. Think about logical football sense. And I'm going to say that term again. Logical football sense.
That phrase, trademark, not to use it as a tradition of Ricky Bobby.
That's what you need to think. Think about the way this team is constructed. Think about the way the salary cap is constructed. Think about how this team is going to be in the future. Think about what you need to do, not just a season. Because that's how we get into trouble as Giant fans. We look at a single season. We don't look what's going to happen 3 years down the road. I need to drink some more Black Rifle coffee. I had a little bit of pumpkin spice left over. So you can't sit there and tell me your best scenario at 3, best player available is Abdul Carter. I've been saying this for weeks. The New York Giants are kind of screwed at 3. If you have Shedeur Sanders sitting there at 3 and you don't take this kid and you go to Abdul Carter, I think one of the best quotes I saw from, I can't remember what the NFL pundit was. I can't remember who he was, but he said this. You take Abdul Carter, he becomes Michael Strahan next year, you're still not a playoff team. You take Shedeur Sanders, and he is better than average and maybe a Pro Bowler, you make the playoffs. That's a strong statement, and it makes a hell of a lot of sense. The Giants are screwed at 3 because you don't really need an Abdul Carter. You don't really need a Travis Hunter. I think Travis Hunter would make more sense for the Giants because he has the opportunity to play 2 separate positions, but I think Travis Hunter potentially has bust written all over him if he thinks and he's going to force teams to let him play both sides of the ball. Charles Woodson couldn't play both sides of the ball. Champ Bailey couldn't play both sides of the ball. But we have this kid who has the build of Devontae Smith, thinks he's going to go out there and tackle A.J. Brown, and then not get walloped by Mitchell or DeJean by going back to the other side of the ball. He needs to focus singularly on a position and go from there. Not thinking about, I'm going to be this gadget player. You can't. Think about that. Think about back in history. Some of the best two-way players going literally back in history. And I love it because I know we don't like to talk about that. But if you go back in the history and look at notable two-way players, Champ Bailey comes to mind, of course, for me from Georgia, 96 to 98. He's a guy that played on both sides of the ball. He was a guy that effectively had 52 tackles, 3 interceptions, 7 pass breakups on defense, and 47 catches, 744 yards for a team high 5 receiving touchdowns. That was back in 1998. What does he do? Taken 7th overall by the Washington Redskins, and they switch him to corner. I love it because I also go back to people like Chuck Bednarik. Big Chuck. He played both ways because he was also a center. But you also had to remember that you had back in the 40s and the 50s, you had 34 guys on the roster, so you went two ways a lot of the time.
That's what she said.
Paul Hornung was another one. Paul Hornung, the standout from Notre Dame. He did play corner in the NFL, but it was a different era. People forget Miles Jack played linebacker and running back at USC. He had 178 tackles, 4 interceptions, and a touchdown. And he also, his last year, had 68 carries for 387 and 11 touchdowns. You forget the venerable who was on this team, Adoree Jackson. That's Adoree. Played wide receiver and corner at USC. Consensus All-American, Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. Jim Thorpe Award winner. Taken 18th overall by the Tennessee Titans. Of course, we know how he played here. Are you seeing? I gotta decline that car. Are you seeing a thing here? Unless you're going back to the 50s and the 20s or even the early 10s, the teens, Jim Thorpe playing for the Cotton Bulldogs back in 1915. He played two ways. Charles Woodson was another great example. Charles Woodson, of course, who won the Heisman. 7 interceptions. 11 catches for 231, a total of 3 touchdowns. Plus, he returned punts, All-American, national championship winning season in 1997. But what did he do when he got selected 4th overall by the Raiders? He went and played corner. The NFL is not a place where you're going to build your chops by trying to go both ways.
That's what she said.
That's never going to get old.
That's what she said.
More coughing. The Giants need to look at this from a logical standpoint. You need to trade back. I'm still saying to me, Tyler Warren is the perfect fit. I think Tyler Warren, though, goes to the Jets. You pair him with Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson in that running game under Aaron Glenn. You are looking at a guy with a 6'6", 256-pound frame who's not only an effective blocker, he's a Travis Kelce-like tight end. I've said it a million times before. You don't take a tight end in the top 5. You usually don't take him in the top 10. I always go back to my breakdown of Kyle Pitts a couple years back. But he's a guy that makes sense for the Giants. Why? Because you have Malik Neighbors on the other side. You need someone to open the middle of the field for your running game. You need to have the ability to pull that safety off Neighbors and give him one-on-one coverage on the outside and let him do what he does because that's what you drafted him to do. Tyler Warren makes all the fucking sense in the world. It makes a logical foot. You want to improve your offense with Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston. You want to improve your running game. You want to open up the middle of the field. You want to take a linebacker and potentially a safety and put him on the tight end because a linebacker is not going to be able to cover this guy. You go out and get a Tyler Warren because he improves your offense. He opens up your running game. He opens up the outside of the passing game, and he gives you an effective weapon over the middle of the field, and he can block. The other thing I'm thinking of, if you really want a guy that's an effective quasi-hybrid linebacker / defensive end, that kid Walker out of Georgia is the way to go. He really is. He will be a difference maker on the defensive end of the ball. He can effectively do the things you need to do. He can get after the quarterback. He can also truly play off the ball linebacker. He has a guy to me that has that he doesn't have the prototypical size at 6'1", 243 pounds, but I'm not putting him on the line. I'm putting him out there in scenarios where he is going to be effective rushing the passer from different places on the field and still have you the ability to work alongside either Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau and set the edge against the run, because we all know the Giants have been beat for the last 5 years quite easily. You just effectively run at Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau because they can't stop the run. They can't. But we're going to sit there and we're going to think that going out and Abdul Carter is going to make sense for this team when you're going to take a guy 3rd overall because he's the best player available and you're going to build packages for him. Here's a package for you. Trade back. You know what's funny? If you took Mason Graham at 3, and again, I always look at positional value. And positional value for a defensive tackle and a tight end is usually not in the top 10. There are instances where it is, but to me, Mason Graham, not as a running mate to Dexter Lawrence, but as a potential replacement to Dexter Lawrence next year. If you're really not going to go quarterback in this draft and you really want to think for the future, what do? You go out and get the likes of Mason Graham. You have him paired with Dexter Lawrence. You still have the Ghost Brothers. And then next year, if Mason Graham comes into his own, you trade Dexter Lawrence while he still has value and go get your quarterback. Trade back. Don't sit there and think to yourself that the Giants are not, Abdul Carter away from being good. Abdul Carter is a highlight. Abdul Carter, in my mind, is a highlight. You take a look at, like I said, you take a look at Walker out of Georgia. He's more of a defensive fit for the Giants, and he fills 2 needs at linebacker and defensive end or a pass rusher. He makes more sense. But we the Giants, we don't like to make sense. What? I love it because that's what I think is going on in the draft room with the Giants. They're all looking at him like, what the fuck's this Joe Shane talking about? While this guy is a tweener, while this guy can be called a hybrid in Walker, he's not a guy that's an Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons' problem was that you don't know if he was a defensive back or a linebacker. To me, Abdul Carter is Nolan Smith. That's what he is. He's Nolan Smith. And he'll probably be Nolan Smith. And I should rephrase that. He'll probably be Nolan Smith on this team, on this Giant team. Now, my other thing is, if you're trading back and you're getting assets, here's my thing. Let's say you grab a Tyler Warren, and let's say you've got maybe a 2nd or a 3rd round pick. You know what you can then do? Because you want to continuously improve your offense? Get yourself a downhill runner. That's what you need to do. You need to find a guy to pair with Tyrone Tracy because we don't know what Tyrone Tracy is going to be yet. You find yourself that prototypical bowling ball back. I take a look at Hampton out of North Carolina, 6 feet, 220 pounds. A guy that I think is going to be an immediate impact player. I think he's a downhill guy. You would take Hampton, Warner. Listen to this lineup. If you have Russell Wilson, you're not, like I said, if you're not going quarterback, it just doesn't, you should still always go Shedeur Sanders. But think about this lineup for a second. You have Tyrone Tracy, you have Hampton in the backfield. On the outside, you are going to have Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton. In the slot, you're going to have Wan'Dale Robinson. You're going to have Tyler Warren at tight end. That's an effective running game combined with an effective passing game in one draft. I also love Caleb Johnson at Iowa. Another guy, another bowling ball guy at 6 feet, 225 pounds. I think he's a legitimate feature back, a legitimate power back. He's going to be a power back. He's going to be a power gap scheme, a gap power scheme guy. And like I said, he makes decisive runs. Everyone used to get mad at Saquon Barkley because he would cut and juke and do this. This kid makes a cut and he's decisive and he finishes with power. So just think again, you have Tyrone Tracy, Caleb Johnson, Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton. You also pick up another wide receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot, Tyler Warren at tight end. You got Russell Wilson at quarterback. Even with a flimsy offensive line, you can still score points. We just need to think about this from a logical football sense. Logical football sense to me is if you think it's a reach at 3 for Shedeur Sanders, I don't think you know what you're talking about. You need a quarterback. You know what a reach is? A reach is Jackson Dart at 24. I love these people breaking down all these Jackson. What was it? Emmanuel Ochoa. I was getting into it with him on Twitter because he was breaking down 3 plays of Jackson Dart, why he should be why should he be the guy. And I just put in the comment section, well, why don't we watch the entire game of Florida or Kentucky when South Carolina play that? Let's watch Jackson Dart go against higher competition. Let's also focus on the fact that Jackson Dart reminds me so much of Daniel Jones because what Lane Kiffin did was he cut the field in half and gave Jackson Dart 2 options. The third option was the run. Watch the film. Don't watch 3 highlights and then tell me out of those 3 highlights, these are the things that are going to make him special. Okay, why don't we watch the other 50 plays? No, because that if we do that, that's just a breakdown. Colin Cowherd said it best, and James sent me the clip when Colin Cowherd said, you know what's funny? You need to be worried about quarterbacks that you didn't talk about during the season, but all of a sudden after their college career is over, they have all this hype and hysteria. And he even pointed out Daniel Jones. That's Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart to me is a reach in the first round. Jackson Dart probably would have been taken in the 6th or 7th round last year, which is why he didn't come out. Because he knew that was a quarterback-laden draft. Shedeur Sanders, to me, there's nothing in life is a sure thing besides death and taxes. Shedeur Sanders, to me, is a sure enough thing that you take him at 3 and you build your team around him. Not waiting another year for another hope in finding a quarterback. Because that's what we do. What's going to happen? Russell Wilson's age is going to reverse. Jameis Winston's all of a sudden going to figure out not to steal crab legs and throw interceptions. But the thought process of the typical Giant fan of Joe Shane is, and I don't know what Joe Shane's thinking. I should not paint with a broad brush. I don't know what he's thinking right now, but I'm hoping he's thinking that he's going to go out and get the guy that is going to turn the franchise around. Like people have said before, Abdul Carter, even if he turns into Michael Strahan, Giants don't make the playoffs. You get a good season out of Shedeur Sanders, you make the playoffs. But like I said, my thought process, trade back, multiple assets, get yourself a tight end, get yourself a running back, build around the guy that you went out and got last year to be the face of the franchise that you gave number 1 to. It wasn't only the first number ever retired by the Giants, it was the first number ever retired in the NFL. You gave that guy that number to be your face of your franchise. Do things, either get him a quarterback or get him help offensively to make him productive. Oh, we're going to be at the draft today. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun, so make sure you stay tuned. Now, we're going to be calling the draft from the field. I was going to do it from the locker room like we did the last couple of years, but I think we're going to be on the field with everyone so we can get the total reaction of the Giant conundrum and the Giant fan base at the draft. So make sure you stay tuned for that. I think the draft coverage is going to start around 7:30. I haven't decided yet. I'll decide that today and let everyone know. Big Dom is going to be running it all the way from the UK. James, T. Brad, and a few Big Don and a few other people are going to be stopping in, helping them run this show. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We're going to be calling in directly from the draft like we did last year. I have wireless microphones this time, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, don't forget to ring that bell because you want to know why. That'd be awesome.